Well, thanks for coming back today. This is Talking Politics in Western Pennsylvania. Our guest today is Christina Fox Grasso. Christina, this is the second time you've been on the program, and you're still not relaxing. You have to relax.
Thanks
okay?
for having me back, Bill.
Well, no problem, no problem. We'll hold on the slide here a little bit. We're going to talk about you're going and competing for the position of the magistrate here in Peters Township.
Yes.
This is an odd position because the state courts put the current person in that position, but now he has to run for the election.
That's correct.
Okay. I have all of my own feelings about that, which some of them will probably come out during this program. Let's talk about, you're going for magistrate, let's talk about your education.
Sure. So I am born and raised in Washington County resident. I went to Trinity High School, and then I went to Washington and Jefferson College and majored in political science. And then I went to Duquesne University School of Law, graduated with honors, and I've really never left the area. I came back to Washington County, back to my roots, and I clerked for the now retired Janet Machetta Bell, who was the judge on the bench in Washington County. I clerked for her for a year, and then I went and I was hired as an assistant district attorney in Washington.
Okay, hold on for a minute. Hold that thought.
Mm-hmm.
Besides the fact that you're lacking education, you didn't graduate from Peters here.
Yeah.
So, like that. Besides that point,
that is a black mark, I'm sure. But
the opportunity for you to do this became apparent. I mean, you filed late.
I did.
To hold this position, but you did win on the Democratic side, which was, I think, very positive because enough people knew of you and your family that they came out and supported you, which I have to admit, truth be told, I'm one of your supporters too. So, I mean, like I said, I want to make sure that everybody's aware of that because I'm going to be talking about some things here as we go on. Okay, your education. Now my questions.
Okay.
And that's the part that are interesting.
Okay.
What experience do you have with the law and the justice system that makes you qualified to be a magistrate?
Well, I started speaking about that already. As I had mentioned, I was a law clerk for a year, which was a wonderful gig. It gave me the opportunity to see the inner workings of the courtroom from the side of the bench side of things. I got to work on opinions for the judge and different court orders. I got to see various things in criminal law, civil law, and some PFAs with the family side of things. Then I was hired, like I said, to the DA's office in Washington County. I had previously interned there while I was in law school. I worked at the Drug Task Force under Stephen Toprani at the time, who hired me back as an assistant DA. And then I continued my tenure under the late Eugene Vitone. So I worked there for a while. I did everything from preliminary hearings across the county, which really is what sparked my interest in the magistrate race. I did juvenile delinquency hearings. I had a criminal trial list where I had misdemeanors all the way to felonies. I did summary appeal hearings, which were appeals up from the magistrate level for traffic and non-traffic violations. And I also had, right before I left, I co-chaired a criminal trial where we had a jury trial. It was counts all the way up to criminal attempted homicide, and we had a successful verdict on every count that we prosecuted. And the only reason I left that job because I did love prosecuting. It was my passion. Criminal law has always been my passion. It doesn't, unfortunately, pay the bills back for law school, which you can imagine are quite hefty to attend 3 years of private law school at Duquesne. So I then switched gears. I was hired by PNC Bank in the Estates and Trust Department, where I had a fiduciary capacity to ensure that the trusts were operating under the governing documents, made sure that the banking regulations were being followed. And then I was hired, I did another move within the bank to the internal audit department for the asset management group, where I was an assistant vice president, senior auditor in their group, and I was monitoring to make sure that everything was being followed by the various governing documents and the banking regulations again.
Was it during this time that Gene called you and asked you to come back?
Yeah, so it was when I first went to PNC Bank. He had called me and asked me if I would be interested in coming back full time to the DA's office. And while I did take that into consideration, because like I said, it was a job I very much enjoyed, I had just made a dedicated switch to PNC Bank where I felt like it was important for me to see it through because I was just hired there and I wanted to give my all there. And quite frankly, the pay was better internally in the bank anyway. So it was more important that I pay my law school loans off because we were going to start a family. So that's why I ended up staying at PNC Bank.
Well, and it's sad and funny that the rumors, of course, that have been started by the opponent
There have been many, Bill.
There have been many, and they all are, I want to use the term lies.
Sure.
For one, you're supposed to be a relative of the president judge, which is not true.
I've gained many cousins this election cycle, Bill.
Well, it's good. It's good to know that. I mean, like I said, and let me see some of the others where. I can't even remember them all because it got stupid. But once again, you look for the people in those positions of magistrate and judge to be honest and upfront and with dignity and compassion, and I'm not finding that now. So, it'd be nice if he stayed in his office once in a while. I mean, but that's beside the point. Yeah, now I'm hearing that some of the township hierarchy are actually going around knocking on doors for you.
Supposedly, that is another rumor that has been started,
so
which
like
is
I said,
unequivocally false.
It's unequivocally false because the township employees are not allowed to do that,
right.
Period. And the person that he's trying to point out
would absolutely never do that.
Never. But anyhow, okay, let me ask you the other one. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing our courts in the local area?
Well, I guess, Bill, that would be a question back to you for some clarification. Are you meaning administrative issues or criminal issues that we're seeing?
Well, you know what? I'm going to say both.
Okay. So let's talk about the administration aspect of it first. I would say that one of the biggest issues is a backlog issue that would face the courts. And a lot of people are short-staffed in today's day and age, and things tend to back up in the court system. What I would do in my position to help alleviate that is that I would work full-time in my office, keep cases moving, and when there's minor criminal cases that can be disposed of at my level, I would handle them at my level and try to eliminate some of the backlog that goes up to the courts.
You bring up a really good point because of the fact that, once again, you would be a full-time magistrate.
Yes.
This would be your only job.
Correct.
Where your opponent has his law practice, which is taking him out of the office, which is then causing some issues with actions that should be taking place on a day-to-day basis. I know that I attended a funeral where he attended both full days. So I can't imagine that all of a sudden the office shuts down for 2 days because he's going to a funeral.
Wow.
But anyhow, that's beside the point.
Wow.
But as far as crime, today I heard a story on the news that Pittsburgh has been rated one of the best cities as far as crime and that's concerned. And then through the next 3 seconds, they start blurting out, well, there were 2 people shot in the Hill District, and there were, they're going on with all this crime.
Right.
I remember whenever you would go for a week in Pittsburgh without anything, and then all of a sudden, when I moved back from Virginia, it was like the doors opened up, and if we're considered one of the better cities for crime, we're in deep trouble.
Sure. Sure.
And the magistrate position handles all of that, and that's what's really crazy about it. I was chastised greatly whenever I was the chairman of the Republican Party, and the two Democrats were running for judge, one on the primary on both tickets. Mm-hmm. So I wrote to the governor and said, put these people on the bench. We don't need to wait. We have a backlog here.
Right. Why have a vacancy? Mm-hmm.
I found out that the Republican governor had already spent what money would be their salaries doing other things.
Oh, wow.
So we didn't do it until they won in the November primary. How would you ensure everyone receives a fair and equal treatment?
Well, I think that can be summed up in one word, actually, Bill. I think that if you treat everyone with respect that walks into your courtroom, then everybody can have a fair and equal chance in your court. Everybody deserves the judge to sit there and be impartial, listen to the facts of the case, apply it to the law as they know it. I'm proud to say that our campaign has been funded primarily by friends and family, so I don't owe anybody anything. So I can say with extreme honesty that I would sit there and be fair and impartial to everyone coming in. Treat every party, whether it's an attorney, a party in the case, a police officer, it doesn't matter. Everybody's treated with the same level of respect that would walk into that courtroom.
Well, that's excellent. The legal experience we talked about.
Yes.
Okay, and you can't see it, but I can see it, and the people at home hopefully will see it soon. And there it is. You can see it on the board there. Okay, so we broke it down into a couple slides because this goes through your PNC and everything. And I think, as I told you in the first program, when you moved into our area, I was talking to, actually Gene was on the program before we started taping. I said, well, you actually let her move into my area. He goes, oh my God, Bill, I didn't know that. And all of a sudden he's going, I should have talked her out of it, this kind of thing. But it was, like I said, Gene was on the program a number of times, and his concern always was the drugs in Washington County.
And it's still.
And our borders are open, and they're coming in trucks full, and they just caught a guy, which I can't understand. They just caught a guy with 10 to 14 kilos of fentanyl, and he's out on bail. How does that happen?
Scary.
It concerns me greatly. Okay, there's the rest of your experience going down to the Machado Law Firm, and if we can show that for a couple of seconds here. Your community involvement.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We have a slide up there now that deals with that. You have been on the Youth Commission here in Peters Township.
Yes, I was sworn in December of 2018, and I have been serving since. It's an honor actually to serve on that board. I really enjoy giving back to the community, working with the youth. For those who aren't familiar with the Youth Commission, it's a board of 9 members of the community that are chosen by council. You apply for it, you interview for it, you're chosen by council. And we sit as a group of 9 peers, and we have recommendations that are brought to us from the police department that fit certain criteria that we use. Primarily, they have to be summary offenses where they're minor in nature. They come in front of us, we hear their case. If we decide to take it, we mentor them through a process for a certain period of time, and we ask certain requirements of them. And it's been a delightful thing to do with the youth. I think that we can really make a positive impact, and even if it's in one person's life, that's good enough for me.
We talked about this during the last program, and I was absolutely touched because at the end of the program, the door opened, and one of the kids came running in, and he said, "I don't know if you remember me," and you called him by his first name. And he just, he said, "Oh, I just turned 18, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to vote for you because of all the things you did." The fact that out of the number of kids that you've worked with, that you remembered his name, struck me because of the fact that I can't remember my own kids' names, let alone, somebody who's outside of the family and that kind of stuff. You volunteered at St. Ben's Church.
Yes, I had the pleasure of working the fish fry last spring and helping out there under the bake sale table, and I recently did help coordinate the baked goods table again at the parish festival that we just had, where I got the opportunity to see hundreds of people come through and get to chat with them, and that was really enjoyable as well.
Good, and you're now a member of the PTA here in Peters Township.
Yeah, I've been a member of the PTA for a couple years, but this year I am going to be a 3rd grade homeroom mom, which my daughter was elated about because Mom gets to come to all the parties now.
Oh, sure.
So, yeah, so I look forward to giving back for the PTA as well.
Well, that's neat. And the third thing here, once again, brings you back into the court system. You were a Washington County Bar Association member as an arbiter.
Yeah, so I joined the Washington County Bar Association in 2010 when I graduated law school. So I've been a member for about 13 years. And with being a member, one of the wonderful things that comes out of that is that we get an opportunity to be called by the courts to serve as arbitrators in the county. So I actually have an arbitration coming up again in November. We sit on a panel of 3 lawyers. We have cases that get appealed from the magistrate level that come in front of us, and we ultimately have a new case. We hear the case and we make a decision of the panel of 3. So I've been doing that
Excellent.
for several years.
Excellent. So, I mean, like your commitment to the community, not just Peters Township, but the entire Washington County community is appreciated.
Thank you.
Now, here's an interesting part that the sitting magistrate can't get.
Oh,
You have been supported by the local state police and the state police unanimously,
yes.
which should say a lot to everybody out there, because these organizations worked with you, and they've had the opportunity to work with your opponent, and they endorsed you unanimously.
Yes, that was quite the honor. We both had a chance to go speak at the local FOP Lodge 47 back in the spring, and we both made our case of why we were running and who we were. And I was delighted to hear at the end of it that they had unanimously chosen to endorse me. And then I had applied for the state endorsement, which they typically do not endorse local candidates at the statewide level, but I was very honored to receive that endorsement as well. Those are very prestigious endorsements that I'm very proud of.
And they, in fact, reintroduced those endorsements, from what I understand.
Yes, they did decide to re-endorse me, I guess I should say, for the fall election as well. They decided to continue their endorsement support.
It's well deserving for sure.
I also have another endorsement that I'm not sure that you're
I'm
really
not aware of.
So my other endorsement, both the retired Judge John Bell, who sat on the bench for a very long time, is very well respected in Washington County, and his wife, Janet Machetta Bell, who was also a judge on the Common Pleas Court that I mentioned law clerking for. I had interned for him way back when I was in law school, and I worked for her for a year. They both have come out and publicly endorsed me as well.
Well, that's wonderful. I didn't know
So
that.
I have two former judges also supporting me, and I think very highly of both of them. So.
Well, that's excellent. Like I said, I have been involved in the politics statewide as well as in the county and the local for years and years. And I'm discouraged by what is, of course, we saw just in the U.S. Congress last night. First time ever they got rid of a speaker. And I mean, it's not just like, oh, this happens every day. The first time in our entire country. And so, I mean, like the political parties, I'm not sure what they're doing anymore. And like I said, and I'm concerned about what the kids are learning about the political process. I'm sort of all, at this point, just, I hope, as a social studies teacher, I try to teach my students that, in fact, there's a reason for this process, and it, in fact, works, but it doesn't. It's all messed up now. And I really do think that the people should start, instead of supporting necessarily a party candidate, but they should consider the attributes of the person involved and whether they agree with their being and how they're going to represent them in the local community, the county, or the state. And I once again, I wouldn't have started supporting you if I felt that you weren't capable of doing that, and I certainly believe you are. You live in my neighborhood. I've known you now for many years, and I have the utmost respect for you and your family and your opinions.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, like I said, I don't want to have anybody out there going, oh, who does he support? No, personally, I do support you, and so I want to make sure that everybody is aware that I am. As many people have already found out, especially all the politicians, I left the Republican Party and am an independent at this point. I don't know what will happen in the future if the parties don't get their act together. I may stay as an independent, but having been the county chairman for the Republican Party, it's been a process.
I think that speaks volumes that you left.
Well, that's like I said, it was very disturbing for me to see how things have changed over the years, that you're not considered as a person and a person of intelligence, seeing the landscape and seeing what's happened. Now, the Republican Party, I'll call it like it is, it's a cult right now, especially in this area. If you don't agree with them, you don't get the emails from them, you don't get told when the meetings are or anything else.
Well, my husband and I are both people that has happened to, actually, in this process. After the primary, we both stopped receiving agendas and emails telling us when the meetings were, even though we are registered Republicans in the district.
Yeah.
So he did go to the meeting this summer. I did not attend it. He did. And he was basically asked, why are you here? And said, we didn't invite you on purpose.
That's not what it's supposed to be.
It's not.
Supposed to be all-inclusive.
That's right.
Get people's opinions and not tell people what you should believe. You should believe what you believe, not necessarily told. But anyhow, we just we're coming to the end of the program. We talked about your experience. We talked about your education. We talked about your community service. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
Well, one thing I will say, I think people have some confusion because I am the lifelong Republican on the ballot, and now I am on the Democratic side, as you had mentioned before. So it is very confusing for people when they go into the polls and they say, wait, I thought she was a Republican. Why is she on the Democratic side? That's because magistrates can cross-file, and I chose to do that, and I happened to win on the Democratic side. I want people to understand that you're supposed to be impartial and not biased, and politics really shouldn't play a role in a magisterial race. You're supposed to just be an unbiased person sitting on the bench, listening to the facts of the case and applying it to the law as written.
You mean you're not a lifelong Democrat and on the Republican ballot as we now see your opponent?
That is correct.
So that, I mean, like I said, talk about a switch.
That's
at
correct.
The last minute there.
I've had people ask me, are you going to switch your parties? I'm not doing that mid-race. I don't think that that's appropriate. I'm not going to try to, be a chameleon at this point. I am who I am. I've been honest about who I am. And so I'm just trying to run an honest campaign. This is my first time ever in politics. It's been a very eye-opening experience for me. But I will say that the Democratic Committee, despite me being a Republican, welcomed me into their group, I would say, with pretty open arms. They've been very kind to me. But still, I am a Republican, and they recognize that. So, I am more moderate in my views, and I just want everybody to understand that I'm being transparent as to who I am so that when they go to the polls, they're not confused as to who I really am.
Well, it's funny because whenever I talk to a lot of my Democratic friends, who I used to be a Democrat years ago, and then I changed over to Republican. My son did that to me.
Oh.
Back then I considered him like a Hitler youth, and then all of a sudden he started making sense. And by the time I finally woke up, I said, but that was before, not now. But anyhow, it's interesting to see though that the people who are representing the different parties are actually the opposite of what they're representing. You're a Republican and you're supporting your Democrat, and he's a Democrat and he's on the Republican ticket. And that's just, like I said, it's confusing as all get out, but that's the way it is these days. You have 2 daughters.
I do.
Yeah.
2 daughters.
And you're more involved in things other than the PTA and the horse lover.
Yes,
Okay.
we have the pony. We've had the pony bug bite us, where we are very involved with the horses. Our daughters both show horses competitively. And I grew up riding as well, so I kind of shared that passion with my kids, and they seem to really enjoy it.
And you're talking to somebody who shares that passion for too many years.
Yes.
That's the problem. We have, you said, let me see what else. Well, I guess that's the main.
Well, and so our oldest is also doing tennis. So we are at the local tennis center frequently now too, and she's really enjoying that. She has ambition to compete in a tournament next summer, so
excellent.
We'll just let her see that through.
Excellent. So, like you said, so you're not just a one-focused person.
No.
You have many interests that, in fact, Peters Township used to be the second per capita horse ownership in the country other than Louisville, Kentucky.
That's amazing.
Like I said, there used to be so many horses. I used to have one, and when I was growing up, I was the Indian at Peters Township.
Oh,
yeah. Yes, I rode with my little spear at the football games and chucked it in the ground. And so, like I said.
I'm talking to somebody that's very famous.
Yeah. No, no, infamous is more like it. But the bottom line is, like the interest that people have, whenever I was working construction and everything else, whenever I was going around, these person aren't just carpenters and things. All of a sudden you find this guy rebuilds antique cars, and this guy over here is, a coach for daughter's basketball game. But then, like I said, you have varied interests, which makes you a well-rounded person, I believe, for this position.
Thank you.
But we're going to be calling it quits now.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's, like a half an hour goes really fast, and it just. But I have one more slide I'd like them to put up, and once we do that, then we will end our program.
Okay.
But I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and I'd like to remind you that in November, please consider your vote and consider it very wisely. Thank you.